Hello lovelies. Welcome to Emma's Tales. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into this story. My dad told me to wait by gate 42 and never came back. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Imagine being 9, excited, ready for an adventure with your dad, your best friend. Then, just like that, he's gone. I remember everything about that morning. The scent of his aftershave, minty and fresh. The leather bag slung casually over his shoulder, worn and comforting. I even remember the way he held my hand as we walked through Terminal 4 at JFK Airport. So sure, so steady, as though he'd never let go. "Lucas, I'll grab a quick coffee," he said, squeezing my hand. "Just wait right here by gate 42. Don't move. I'll be right back, I promise." His smile was wide, reassuring, a grin I'd known my whole life. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? I watched him blend into the crowd, tall, confident, weaving effortlessly through the busy airport terminal. He paused once, turned around and winked at me. It was our thing. A wink meant everything would be okay. That wink had been my safety, my anchor. But today, it felt different. Forced, maybe. Nervous. At the time, I didn't know how important that memory would become. I climbed onto the seat by the gate, feet dangling above polished floors. I pulled out my toy airplane from my backpack, spinning its wheels, imagining it soaring. The loudspeaker hummed overhead, a voice announcing departures to places I'd only dreamed of: London, Tokyo, Paris. 15 minutes passed quickly. I wasn't worried. I knew Dad liked his coffee dark, with 2 sugars. He'd taught me exactly how he liked it. Sometimes he'd let me stir it, pretending it was our secret recipe. I swung my legs back and forth, looking out the window at giant planes taking off, imagining myself inside, flying somewhere far away with him. Another 15 minutes dragged by. I glanced down the corridor, searching for his tall figure. Crowds moved in waves, people pushing carts, pulling suitcases, children laughing or crying. But none of them were Dad. I tightened my grip on the airplane toy. My heartbeat quickened just a bit. But still, I waited. Time passed strangely in that terminal, stretching and folding. An hour in an airport feels like an eternity, especially when you're 9. I stared at my watch, the Mickey Mouse hands moving slower than I'd ever noticed before. I stood up, pacing in a small circle, watching for him. My stomach began tightening with uncertainty. I started walking toward the coffee shop he'd pointed to earlier. The line was long, impatient passengers tapping feet, checking watches. My eyes darted across faces, searching desperately. He wasn't there. My breath quickened. Panic stirred deep inside me. I spun around, scanning the crowd again. The terminal blurred, dizzying me with bright signs and rushing strangers. A woman in uniform spotted me standing alone and knelt beside me gently. "Sweetie, are you lost?" I shook my head quickly. "No. My dad just went for coffee. He's coming back soon." My voice wavered, betraying my fear. Her eyes softened, unsure. "Let's wait right here, okay? I'll wait with you." I nodded quietly, but my stomach churned with dread. Minutes felt like hours. I checked every man who passed, hoping, praying it would be him. Each unfamiliar face tightened the knot in my stomach. Finally, the lady led me to airport security, where I sat on a hard plastic chair, surrounded by adults with concerned expressions. "Lucas, can you tell me your father's name?" an older security guard asked. "Mark Everett," I replied softly, hoping it would help find him faster. "And your mother?" "Carla Everett. She lives in Brooklyn." He wrote something down and disappeared into another room. I sat quietly, squeezing my airplane until my hand hurt. Tears burned my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Dad had taught me to be brave. "Men don't cry," he'd always said, gently, teasingly. "We hold strong." But holding strong felt impossible now. I remembered last week, just me and Dad in the apartment. It had been his weekend with me after the divorce. He'd let me stay up past bedtime, watching old movies on his faded couch. I'd fallen asleep leaning on his shoulder, safe and warm. In the morning, pancakes with syrup smiles. Everything was perfect. Normal. Wasn't it? Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. I couldn't help but wonder if I'd done something wrong. Had I upset him? Was it my grades? Did I forget to clean my room? I racked my brain for reasons, anything to explain why he'd leave. The guard returned, his face grave. Kneeling down to eye level, he took a deep breath. "Lucas, we've contacted your mother. She's coming now, okay?" "But what about my dad?" I asked urgently. "Did you find him?" "He said he'd be right back." The guard hesitated. A shadow crossed his face, something between sadness and pity. I hated it instantly. "Lucas, your father isn't coming back." I stared at him, not comprehending at first. "No. He said he was just getting coffee." My voice cracked, desperation flooding through me. He wouldn't leave me. He promised. But his face told me everything. He'd seen it before. Children left behind, abandoned, promises shattered in terminals. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. My toy plane fell from my hand onto the cold tile, wheels spinning uselessly. I didn't even move to pick it up. The room blurred, sounds muffled. I felt disconnected, weightless, sinking deeper into disbelief. Carla arrived soon after, racing through the terminal in panic. Her face was streaked with tears. She wrapped me in her arms, whispering apologies into my hair. Her touch was warm, comforting, but it wasn't him. On our drive home, Brooklyn streets passing in silence, my mother reached over, gently taking my hand. "Lucas, sweetheart, none of this was your fault." But I couldn't answer. All I heard were his words, repeating in my mind. "Wait right here. I'll be back, I promise." In the days following, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene again and again. The crowd swallowing him, that wink, the empty corridor. I felt numb, haunted by questions that had no answers. People tried to comfort me, murmuring phrases adults always use when tragedy strikes. "It's going to be okay. You'll be fine." But those words meant nothing. They were empty, just noise. What did fine even mean anymore? Dad's apartment became a ghost of memory. Half-eaten cereal boxes, our old DVDs stacked neatly, his coffee cup still sitting on the kitchen table. I visited once, stealing his pillowcase to cling to his smell, hoping it might bring him back. It didn't. One night, my mother sat beside my bed, stroking my hair softly. "He made a choice, Lucas," she whispered. "A cruel choice. But you didn't cause it." "I thought he loved me," I whispered back, voice shaking. Her eyes filled with tears. "He does, in his own broken way. But sometimes people who love us still hurt us." I didn't fully understand then how love and pain could coexist. All I knew was the ache in my chest, the emptiness in our home, and the loss of something I'd never imagined losing: trust. Years later, I would learn what happened. Custody fights, financial trouble, stress. I heard whispers. But no explanation ever filled the hole he'd carved into my life that day. He chose his freedom over my safety. He left me at gate 42, alone, scared, and changed forever. That morning wasn't just the day I lost my dad. It was the day I lost my innocence, my childhood, my belief in promises. From that moment forward, I learned something harsh yet necessary. The only person you can truly count on is yourself. Dad vanished that day at gate 42. And while the world kept moving, people boarding planes, sipping coffee, rushing to destinations unknown, I stayed behind, waiting, broken by a promise he never meant to keep. But that's only the beginning. This was how my journey started, not how it would end. Because someday, I'd take back control. Someday, I'd learn to fly. And someday, he'd be the one left waiting at a gate, baggage he could carry alone. We moved into a cramped Brooklyn apartment a week after Dad vanished. Mom said the old place was too big, too expensive. But really, I think she just wanted to erase the ghost he'd left behind. The cereal boxes he hadn't finished, the shoes still tucked neatly beside the door, the echoes of laughter now gone silent. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Our new home wasn't terrible, but it wasn't ours. The building was squeezed between a bodega with flashing neon signs and a laundromat that never slept. Inside, everything was small. The kitchen barely fit both of us at once, and my bedroom was just wide enough for a twin bed, a desk, and the shelf where my toy airplanes sat in careful rows. Each evening, sirens wailed past my window, and neighbors argued loudly through thin walls. Mom did her best to brighten it. She painted my room sky blue and hung posters of clouds and distant lands. But no matter how much she tried, it never felt like home. I was just living there, passing time, waiting for something I couldn't name. At school, I felt even more disconnected. It wasn't that kids were mean, they just didn't notice me. Maybe they sensed I carried something heavy and uncomfortable. Kids have a strange instinct that way, as though sadness might be contagious. Lunch became a daily ritual of sitting alone, eating quietly, staring down at my plastic tray, hoping no one would see the shame I carried. Teachers spoke softly around me, careful, gentle, treating me like glass, easily shattered, difficult to repair. I didn't talk much about Dad. Everyone knew the story, anyway. It traveled quickly from classroom whispers to teacher lounges. The abandoned boy. The one whose dad just left. People whispered out of pity, curiosity, sometimes judgment. But never openly. Not where I could hear. Some nights, I'd dream vividly about the airport. Always the same scene, standing alone by gate 42, clutching my toy airplane, desperately scanning faces for his. In those dreams, the floor beneath me tilted, spinning slowly, pulling me downward. I'd wake up gasping, tangled in sweaty sheets, heart racing, feeling the emptiness anew. Those nightmares changed something inside me. The airport wasn't just a memory anymore. It became an obsession. I started collecting airplanes, lining them on shelves by size, color, and airline. I stole Mom's old road atlas and spent hours tracing routes with my finger, imagining each destination. Sydney, Hong Kong, Johannesburg, as if the act of mapping them could somehow transport me away from the tight apartment walls, from the smallness of our life. Mom noticed, of course. She'd catch me flipping through glossy travel magazines at the grocery checkout line and give me gentle, questioning looks. But she never brought it up. Maybe she feared the answers I might give. One day, about 2 months after the airport, I came home from school and overheard her on the phone. She sounded weary, frustrated. No, I told you I can't work double shifts every night, she said, voice cracking slightly. Lucas needs me home more. He's struggling and, she paused, exhaling heavily. I know we're behind, but I'll figure something out. I stood frozen, listening, guilt heavy in my chest. She'd never told me money was tight, but it wasn't hard to see. The way she'd count coins before grocery shopping or the way bills stacked up on the kitchen table, unopened, ignored until payday. I slipped quietly into my room, feeling the weight of it all. The financial pressure, the loneliness, the confusion about what exactly had gone wrong. I buried myself in the one place that still offered hope. Drawing airplanes, sketching runways, filling pages with imaginary skies. Days passed quietly, blending together. I became invisible. Each day at school, I waited for the bell to ring, returning home only to sit silently by my window, watching airplanes leave faint trails across the sky, wishing I was aboard one, traveling far away from this feeling of emptiness that wouldn't leave. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. I was sitting on our front steps, sketchbook in my lap, drawing a Boeing 747, lost in detail. The engines, wings, windows, when I heard a voice behind me. "Not bad," the voice said. Deep, gentle, curious. Startled, I glanced up. A man stood on the sidewalk. Older, maybe in his 60s, neatly dressed in a sweater and khakis, eyes sharp yet kind. He smiled, gesturing toward my drawing. "Looks like you're serious about airplanes." I shrugged slightly, closing the sketchbook, suddenly shy. "Sorry," he chuckled softly, sensing my hesitation. "I didn't mean to interrupt. My name's Miguel Reyes. I moved upstairs last week. Apartment 4C. "Lucas," I replied quietly. "We're in 3B. He nodded warmly. "Well, Lucas in 3B. I was a pilot in the Air Force for 32 years. Retired now. But I still love planes." Something in me perked up, a spark of curiosity. "You flew real planes?" He smiled wider, sitting down a respectful distance from me on the steps. "Flew them, fixed them, loved them. Nothing compares to the freedom of the sky." Freedom. The word lingered in my ears, tugging at the corners of my heart. That was exactly what I'd been chasing, what I'd lost. He seemed to sense something deeper beneath my silence. "If you'd ever like to talk planes or see some old photos, stop by any time," he offered gently. "Us aviation folks need to stick together." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at my toy planes, wondering what stories Mr. Reyes could tell. Eventually, curiosity overtook my hesitation. 2 days later, after school, I knocked on apartment 4C. He welcomed me warmly, inviting me inside his modest home. The walls were filled with framed photographs, fighter jets soaring above clouds, group shots of smiling men in uniform, aerial views of vast landscapes. It felt comforting, like stepping into another world, a life I wished could be mine. Miguel Reyes wasn't just talkative. He was patient, thoughtful, genuinely interested. He showed me photos from his pilot days, pointing out planes he'd flown, places he'd seen. His passion filled the small room, infectious and genuine. "How does it feel?" I finally asked, nervously. "When you're up there?" He considered carefully, eyes far away. "It feels like everything makes sense. You're above it all. Problems, worries. Up there, it's just you and endless possibility." I nodded quietly, mesmerized by his words. He handed me a worn leather patch, an Air Force insignia. "Keep this," he said. "Remind yourself you can reach the sky someday too." I held it tightly, feeling something new rise inside me. Possibility. When I returned home that evening, Mom was cooking dinner. She glanced up, relieved to see a spark in my eyes for the first time in months. I showed her the patch, telling her briefly about Mr. Reyes. Her eyes softened, grateful. "He sounds wonderful, Lucas. Maybe this is just what you need." I nodded. Maybe. From then on, Mr. Reyes became more than just a neighbor. He became my mentor, my guide. Each week after school, I sat on his worn couch, absorbing stories of courage, discipline, adventure. He taught me to identify aircraft from their silhouettes, how to read wind patterns in clouds, how to fold paper airplanes that actually soared. He never asked about Dad, never pried into my hurt. Yet somehow, quietly, he became the father figure I'd lost. He offered wisdom gently, patiently, always with warmth. One afternoon, as I was about to leave, he paused thoughtfully. "Lucas, life grounded me early. Bad eyesight, age, you know. But you've got your whole future ahead. Do you ever think about flying for real?" I hesitated, then nodded slowly, shyly revealing my dream. "Every single day." He smiled knowingly, putting a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Then chase that dream. Don't let fear ground you. Make your life about the skies, not the runway." Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. His words sank deeply inside, lighting something powerful, something I'd thought I'd lost forever, hope. That night, alone in my small bedroom, surrounded by toy airplanes, I opened my sketchbook again, not to escape, but to plan. I drew cockpits, flight paths, controls. For the first time in months, I didn't draw to run away. I drew to soar. In that quiet, humble apartment, with sirens still blaring outside and bills still stacked on the kitchen table, something changed inside me. My father's abandonment had grounded me, but Mr. Reyes's kindness had given me wings. I wasn't trapped anymore, even if life still felt small. Now the sky was open, and I was determined, someday, somehow, to reach it. At 17, most kids dreamed of getting their driver's license and taking weekend road trips with friends. But my dreams were different. They stretched above the rooftops, higher than skyscrapers, beyond even the clouds. My dreams belonged entirely to the sky. Mom worried. Of course she did. She watched me leave the house before dawn, pulling on a worn bomber jacket I'd found at a thrift shop, a backpack slung heavily across my shoulder. She didn't know where I went so early, and I never told her. Maybe she thought I was slipping into trouble, hanging with the wrong crowd, getting lost in something dark. But the truth was, I'd never felt clearer about anything in my life. Every morning before sunrise, I rode my bike to Brooklyn's small community airport. The place was barely more than a strip of cracked asphalt and a faded control tower, but to me, it was a sanctuary. I'd discovered the flight school online, secretly filling out applications, making plans, budgeting every dollar. 2 part-time jobs after school, washing dishes at a diner and stocking shelves at a convenience store, paid for each precious lesson. It wasn't glamorous, but every dollar was worth it. My instructor, Charlie Bennett, was a gruff, no-nonsense ex-military pilot with weathered hands and a voice like gravel. He'd watched me skeptically during our first lesson, raising an eyebrow when I fumbled with the seat belt, unable to hide my nerves. But over weeks, as I learned the instruments, checked oil pressure, fuel levels, and ran through pre-flight procedures until they became second nature, his skepticism faded. Something else took its place: respect. "You got potential, kid," he grumbled one afternoon, inspecting my careful flight plan scribbled in meticulous handwriting. It wasn't much, but coming from Charlie, it felt like gold. Flying was never easy. I'd expected it to feel instantly freeing, like shedding a burden, but at first, it felt terrifying. Sitting at the controls, feeling the powerful vibrations beneath my fingertips, I often felt that old panic rising again. The fear of losing control, of being abandoned, helpless. But with each lesson, something changed. The fear was still there, but I started to see it differently. I was confronting it head-on, daring it to break me, realizing I was stronger, more capable. Each successful takeoff, each smooth landing proved something powerful. I wasn't trapped by my past anymore. Then came the day I'd waited months for. My first solo flight. Dawn broke clear and bright, sunlight spilling over the tarmac in brilliant streaks of gold. Charlie stood by the plane, arms folded, eyes intense. "Today's the day, Lucas," he said simply, handing me the keys. "Show me what you got." I nodded, gripping the keys tightly. My heart pounded wildly, adrenaline surging. Everything I'd worked for led up to this moment. No instructor beside me, no backup, just me, alone. Climbing into the cockpit, strapping in, running through each checklist methodically, my hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. The engine roared to life with a comforting growl, vibrations steady beneath me. My breathing deepened. I felt connected, purposeful, powerful. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Slowly, confidently, I taxied toward the runway. Every movement deliberate, each check precise. As I turned the plane to line up, the runway stretched out ahead, infinite and inviting. I pushed the throttle forward, heart hammering, breath quickening, watching the world blur faster outside the window. Then came that magical, exhilarating moment, the wheels lifting from solid ground, gravity gently releasing its grip, and suddenly I was airborne. A surge of pure joy, raw and electrifying, flooded my chest. My smile broke wide, unstoppable. Below, the rooftops grew smaller, roads shrunk into threads, and all the noise and worries faded away, left behind on the runway. Up here, alone in the sky, I was finally in control. I soared higher, guided only by instinct, training, and trust in myself. The instruments reassured me, familiar dials and gauges confirming I was exactly where I needed to be. The morning sun warmed my face through the windshield, the horizon sprawling endlessly around me. This was freedom. For the first time since that day in Terminal 4, I felt truly safe. Not because someone else was holding my hand, but because I was holding myself. I guided the plane smoothly through gentle turns, each maneuver deliberate and fluid. My doubts vanished into the rushing air, carried away by the steady hum of the engine. As the runway reappeared in the distance, my pulse quickened again, not with panic, but exhilaration. I aligned myself, focused, calm. With gentle precision, I guided the aircraft downward, correcting subtly, trusting myself completely. Wheels touched pavement gently, flawlessly. The plane slowed to a graceful halt. Charlie met me as I stepped from the cockpit, eyes twinkling with something like pride. "Nicely done," he nodded approvingly. "You're officially a pilot." His words resonated deeply, settling somewhere inside that had been broken long ago. Pilot. That meant something beyond certification. It meant control, independence, resilience. A dream turned reality. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Months passed in rigorous training, exams, check flights. I pushed myself harder, longer, demanding excellence. Each flight healed another piece of me, erasing lingering doubts. Mom finally discovered what I'd been doing, worry turning slowly to pride as she watched her son reclaim his life, 1,000 feet above ground. When graduation arrived, I stood among seasoned aviators twice my age, accepting certification as one of the youngest licensed pilots in the region. On stage, clutching that certificate, I thought about Dad for a fleeting second, not with bitterness or sadness, but simple acceptance. He wasn't why I stood there. He wasn't part of this victory. This achievement belonged solely to me, earned through sweat, determination, courage. Later, alone on the tarmac beneath stars spilling across the endless sky, I whispered quietly into the night. The words carried upward, liberated. If I can control this plane, I can control my life. The sky belonged to me now. At 29, my life had finally reached cruising altitude. I had the career I dreamed of, flying jets across oceans and continents, the respect of peers, and passengers who trusted my every word. But more than anything, flying gave me power, the ability to control my path, my destiny. I had transformed from the abandoned boy at Gate 42 into Captain Lucas Everett, a pilot whose calm voice carried passengers safely home. I woke early, the city still cloaked in darkness. The air held the crisp promise of dawn as I adjusted my pilot uniform meticulously, each button symbolizing achievement and respect. In the mirror, my reflection was confident, professional, a man fully in control of his destiny. I had a quick coffee, grabbed my briefcase, and headed to JFK Airport. The terminal bustled with morning passengers, announcements echoing off walls, blending into a comforting hum of organized chaos. Each time I walked these halls, I felt a quiet pride. The airport had once represented loss and helplessness, but now it was mine. My territory. "Morning, Captain," flight attendants greeted warmly as I boarded. My co-pilot, Jessica Hughes, was already running through pre-flight checks. "Morning, Jess," I said, settling into my seat, familiar dials and controls comforting beneath my fingertips. My eyes scanned instruments methodically, routine checks calming in their predictability. I glanced at the passenger manifest casually, prepared to sign off as usual. My eyes moved swiftly, names barely registering, until suddenly, everything froze. Mark Everett. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. My pulse surged violently. Adrenaline flooded every nerve, fingertips numb, heart hammering relentlessly in my chest. My breath caught sharply, vision blurring momentarily. Mark Everett. My father. The man who'd left me standing alone, terrified, confused, waiting endlessly by gate 42. He was on my flight. Memories burst forward like an uncontrollable wave. The cold plastic seats. The echo of his promise. The slow realization of abandonment. Years of suppressed anger, confusion, and loss crashed through me in seconds. Captain. Jessica's voice broke gently through my turmoil. You good? I nodded instinctively, swallowing hard. Fine, just give me a minute. My hands tightened around the clipboard, knuckles white. Outside the cockpit window, baggage handlers loaded suitcases efficiently, oblivious to the emotional storm inside me. My chest tightened painfully, breath shallow and rapid. Why now? After all these years, why had he chosen today, my flight? Jess, could you finish these checks? I managed, standing abruptly. I need a moment. She nodded with quiet concern as I stepped out, closing the cockpit door softly behind me. I paced the small crew area, heart racing. What did he want? Did he even recognize my name? Did he realize the child he'd abandoned now held his safety in his hands? Professionalism dictated restraint, neutrality. My training, years of discipline demanded it. But beneath the uniform, behind the polished pilot facade, fury simmered, raw and undeniable. I pictured confronting him, demanding answers, witnessing his excuses crumble beneath my authority. But even stronger was the temptation to simply refuse him, just as he'd refused me. Yet, could I let him disrupt the careful control I'd built? Could I sacrifice years of self-respect to vengeance? I stopped pacing, gripping the edge of a narrow countertop, breathing deeply, deliberately. Inhale, exhale. Each breath grounding me, reminding me of who I'd become. A quiet knock startled me. Jessica peeked her head out. We board in 10. Ground crew needs confirmation on manifest. I straightened, smoothing my uniform reflexively. Give me 2 minutes. She nodded, leaving me alone again. In that quiet space, clarity settled over me. He had no right to step back into my life casually, without consequence. Yet, the truth was simpler still. I didn't want to face him. Not today. Not ever. Decision made, I walked steadily toward the boarding gate, finding the head of ground crew, a middle-aged woman named Elaine. She smiled warmly, oblivious to my inner turmoil. Captain Everett, ready to board? Almost, I replied firmly, voice composed yet authoritative. Passenger Mark Everett needs to be removed from my flight. Elaine's eyes widened slightly, surprised but professional. Understood, Captain. I'll handle it discreetly. Thank you, I said quietly, grateful for her neutrality. Don't forget to like and drop a comment. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. I returned to the cockpit, heartbeat steadying slightly. Jessica glanced questioningly, clearly curious but sensing my need for silence. Moments later, Elaine returned briefly. It's done, Captain. Passenger removed. Thank you, Elaine, I replied quietly. She nodded, leaving the cockpit once again calm and controlled. Relief flooded my chest, cool and cleansing, easing the knot of tension. Jessica adjusted her headset quietly. All set, Captain? I took a deep, steadying breath. Yes, all set. I settled firmly into my seat, gripping the controls comfortably, reclaiming my composure. The engines roared reassuringly beneath us as we taxied toward takeoff. With each second, distance grew between myself and the past. As the runway stretched ahead, open and inviting, I pressed the throttle forward, feeling power surge through my hands, into the jet, propelling us skyward. Gravity released effortlessly, the aircraft smoothly lifting into perfect blue skies. In that instant, flying once again became liberation, an act of reclaiming myself from a past that no longer controlled me. I adjusted the intercom gently, addressing the passengers in my calm, assured voice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 427 to Los Angeles. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet. Clear skies ahead. Sit back and enjoy the flight. My voice echoed through the cabin confidently, hiding the emotional battle I'd just won. Passengers trusted me to carry them safely, trusted my control, my competence. That trust wasn't something I'd ever abandon. Not like he had. Today, Mark Everett had returned to Gate 42, the same gate he'd left me stranded at 20 years ago. Only this time, he'd been the one left behind, baggage I no longer needed to carry. My journey continued upward, toward clear skies, free from his shadow. Hey lovelies, thanks so much for sticking around till the end. If you felt something, learned something, or just enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button. See you next time, bye.